Oh, Rolly, what's your game? Are you fighting in the war again? Carmen holds a cross and chain. Rolly don't belong. His paper hand salutes some birds, but his mind's in Normandy. Golden star on a flannel shirt, but his mind's in Normandy. These commands are nothing that they'd understand. Oh, Rolly, what's your game? Are you fighting the war again? Carmen holds a cross and chain. Rolly don't belong. Kept his cool like a one-man company. What else can a soldier do? Like a one-man company, all alone with demons that they'll never know. Oh, Rolly, what's your game? Are you fighting the war again? Carmen holds a cross and chain. Rolly don't belong. And again the dogs are on his boots like a POW. One more old demented fool, or a POW. Laugh and say that they're all the same at that age. This is Rolly. What's your game? Are you fighting the war again? Carmen holds a cross and chain. Rolly don't belong. Oh, Rolly, what's your game? Are you fighting the war again? Carmen holds a cross and chain. Rolly don't belong.
Thank you very much.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Enter the Haggis Throwback Thursday listening party. This week we are talking about our album from 2013, The Modest Revolution. This is an album that we did a Kickstarter for that was entirely influenced and inspired by one issue of a Toronto newspaper called the Globe and Mail. And we got the title for the record from the very front page of the newspaper, which said Stephen Harper's Modest Revolution, Stephen Harper being the Prime Minister of Canada at the time. So once again, obviously, we've got everybody here. Everybody say hello.
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 Oh, there.
So we're going to go through this album song by song. We're going to be joined by our friend Zach McNees for some perspectives on a few things. And we're going to cut to some live in studio blogs that we actually did for YouTube during the recording of the album. So it's going to be all kinds of fun interactive content here. Please make sure to come over and say hi in the chat here on YouTube. And if you are so inclined, you can throw us a tip at enterthehaggis.com/tipjar. And thanks to everybody who has contributed over the last bunch. We've had a lot of fun doing these things. So who wants to give a little bit of setup and background for this record? Trevor, I think it was kind of your idea to begin with to pick a newspaper and try and be inspired for an entire record from one issue.
Yeah, we were just looking for something different to do. We had a bunch of albums under our belts, and we're looking for some inspiration, something that was a concept, but not necessarily a concept album. And taking inspiration from one specific source served that purpose. And it was just kind of a fun songwriting challenge, something for all of us to sort of be on the same page songwriting wise. You know, oftentimes when you've got a songwriter or a couple songwriters in a band, they're writing from their lyrics, from their perspective. But when you've got the source material for the lyrics all in one place, like this was, sort of allows everybody to jump on board. And whether or not you're writing lyrics, you're still going through the newspaper and involving yourself in that way from a lyrics perspective. Huh. But anyway, I thought it was just a fun thing to do, something a little different, and yeah, I thought our supporters would get behind it, and people certainly did. So it was cool.
Do you remember how we came to choose the Globe and Mail specifically instead of another Canadian paper?
My aunt still writes for the Globe and Mail, but less so. She was the bureau chief for the Globe and Mail for quite some time, and an education reporter. And yeah, I don't necessarily know that she was a catalyst for that choice, but I'm not sure. I thought she had a connection there. We were looking for a lot of copies of the newspaper,
right?
And I knew that she knew everybody there. So I thought, if we do the Globe, we can reach out to her, and she can direct us to the person who would be able to set us up with 1,500 copies or you know, whatever it was that we ordered.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I think people probably didn't really maybe think of, like fans, when they heard of the whole concept, was that we had to basically pick a day a year or so before we released the record and just hope that day was going to have an interesting series of articles, and there's going to be a lot of good news or a lot of interesting news that day. And also, because we were part of the hook for the Kickstarter was that we were going to include a copy of the newspaper that it was based on. We had to choose in advance, and we had to order, I forget what it was, like 2,500 copies of the newspaper and get them delivered on pallets, which I think we had dropped off in someone's garage, and they just kind of sat there until we were ready to start distributing them. And it was pretty crazy. I mean, I remember getting the first copy of the paper and opening it and looking at it, and then in the background while I'm reading through the paper, there's 2,500 other copies of that paper. Like, we were committed. At that point, we didn't really have the option of picking a different day. Mm-hmm. Craig, do you remember what it was like reading through that paper the first time?
Yeah, well, I remember when you guys pulled up. I was living in Ann Arbor at the time, and I remember you guys pulled up in the driveway, and I looked in the back of the van. And man, I'm surprised you didn't get stopped at the border for importing softwood lumber. That was a lot of papers. Yeah, I remember going through it, checking everything, checking the obituaries, checking the ads, checking oh god, just everything. Just going, come on, I gotta find something in here. This is a really fat paper, and these guys have just brought 3,000 of them. Or whatever you picked up.
And you wrote the song "By a Car," which ended up on the vinyl release that we did, and that was from an advertisement in that wasn't it?
Yeah. I forget what I could barely remember it at all. All I remember was mainly just the photograph of a woman looking in the mirror and smiling and something like that. I can't remember much else about it.
So just another quick brief background thing is that people who were around when we released this record might be aware that we did a crazy scavenger hunt puzzle that was built into the artwork of this album and also built into the newspaper. We built a puzzle that people could follow along with and try to solve. And it was the actual disc for Modest Revolution was like a puzzle disc. It had like concentric rings, and each ring had a different sort of decoder that you had to figure out. And there was a hidden panel inside the artwork for the album that you had to solve a few puzzles to even know that it was there, and then tear open the artwork to find it. And we had to place a classified ad in the issue of the newspaper in advance with a special phone number that you could text if you found that particular classified ad, and then you would get a text back with the clue to solve the next section of the puzzle. It was a very nerdy, over-the-top thing, but it took a lot of setup, a lot of work to get it all going. And I'm almost kind of sad now because you had to have a copy of the newspaper to actually solve it. And so people who buy the album now, if they get like a copy on eBay or through Amazon or something, even if they get the physical CD, there's no way for them to actually solve the puzzle. So I hope nobody's ever like gotten to a certain point and then been totally stumped because they couldn't get their hands on a copy of the newspaper from 2012. But you just had to be there, I guess. All right, well, we're going to jump into the first song on this record. It's the shortest song on the record, and it's only 2 minutes and 55 seconds long, and it's called Year of the Rat. And it not only is it the shortest song on the record, it's probably one of the fastest songs that we ever wrote, because I remember, Trevor, you came up with the mandolin line for this, and I just started strumming along with you on the acoustic guitar, and the way the two lines kind of fit together just sounded so cool. And you came up with the melody on the spot. I think you wrote the sort of the bridge/chorus thing on the spot, and then we decided there needed to be some sort of a solo, and then the song ended, and it was really, really quick.
It was fun, yeah. It's nice to have some spontaneous creativity in the studio. You know, you spend so long kind of working on songs leading up to it, and then it can feel a little bit dry as you're just kind of assembling things that you already have. So it's fun sometimes to just come up with something impromptu. Lyrically, that it comes from the real estate section of the newspaper. So, a riveting start to the record.
It's like a full day setup when you go into the studio the way we did it. At least a full day. So I remember you were like an ISO booth just on the mandolin playing along as like drums are getting set up and sounds are getting done. And I don't know where in the process of the tracking we did the song, what number was, but I think it was what we were jamming on when we were first getting all the sounds going with everything, and kind of worked it out then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, one thing that I remember about this song is that, and I mean, maybe I'll get Zach to kind of throw in his thoughts on this too, because I know that he felt strongly about this. The vocal take that's on the record is almost entirely Trevor's very first pass ever scratch vocal while he was just trying to get levels or something, and he just nailed it so hard. And we did go back and attempt to have like, you know, a polished studio vocal, and I forget how much time you spent on it, Trevor, but we were in there for a while trying to like duplicate the magic, and sometimes you just can't capture that lightning again. And so when it came time to like comp between all the different takes and things, I think Zach ended up using almost your entire scratch vocal. So what people hear is more or less Trevor's first time singing all the way through the song ever, which is pretty cool. You didn't know that, did you?
No, I didn't. Although I do remember Can't Trust the News. I remember being very happy with the scratch vocal on that and trying to salvage. I don't remember if we did salvage a chunk of that or just tried to recreate the...
I think we did. There's a few things we actually ended up pulling from the scratch tracks of the initial recordings. I did some stuff in Blackout on guitar that wound up getting used. Like
that's unusual. I don't remember any other recording where we've kind of gone back to the, you know, I don't know why, there was just this kind of good vibe that was going on when we were doing the you know, you're more relaxed when you're not going for a final vocal, you know, or a final electric part or whatever you're playing. So sometimes it just comes across as a bit more relaxed and organic.
Yeah, I mean, I should mention, just maybe between a couple of other songs, we'll do a little more talking about where we recorded this record and what that studio was like. But we were there for 4 or 5 days pre-production before we started actually tracking. We set up in the live room, and it was, I think, I mean, I guess Jonathan's studio up in Maine was similar, but it was the first time we'd ever been in a studio where we could just set up, all 5 of us, and actually just play together in the studio. And we did that for about 5 days. And then when it came time to actually start laying down tracks, we were all so comfortable in the space because we'd been there for a while. We kind of got our sea legs under us, and we weren't like scared of the red light coming on anymore. And yeah, I think it did make a big difference. So unless there's anything other, I will say, the solo section in this song, we didn't know what instrument we wanted it to be on, but from the first time we came to this part of the song, kind of heard Uilleann bagpipes, which is the Irish bagpipe, and Craig, to his credit, did record this solo on whistle. Do you remember that, Craig?
Yeah, and I ended up playing whistle live for it. I also tried to get it going on the red pipes in one of the settings in the electronic pipe.
Right.
But it really wasn't working out.
Yeah, it just felt like we needed that like wailing Irish bagpipe sound, and something that was just a little kind of like stronger and, I mean, not heavier, but it's almost entirely, I think, actually entirely acoustic. The whole song, the whole track is all acoustic instruments. So we wanted something for the solo that was really going to like ramp up the intensity. And because it's in E minor, the whistle that you had, Craig, didn't, for whatever reason, the range that it was in, it didn't feel like it really had that intensity. It felt kind of quiet and soft. So we wrote to 2 Irish bagpipe players. The only 2 great Irish bagpipe players that we knew at the time, I think. One of whom was Tyler Duncan, who he was the piper in a band from Ann Arbor, Michigan called Millish, and he was a fantastic Irish bagpipe player. We wrote to him, and we wrote to Eric Rigler, who we knew from band Bad Haggis, who later some of you guys might have come across Eric because he toured with the Young Dubliners for a while, and he's had a bunch of different bands that he's played with. He's also the guy who played My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion, and he played on Phil Collins records and Madonna records, and he was Fat Bastard. He played the Fat Bastard bagpipe parts in Austin Powers, and pretty much anytime you've heard pipes or Irish whistles in any Hollywood movie, it's probably Eric Rigler. Braveheart, all these things. But anyways, Tyler got back to us first, and we had a very small window, and we basically just sent a scratch track over to Tyler, and within a couple of hours, he sent us back not only his pipe part, but also like 3 different whistle parts that he had recorded just kind of on his own. And we flew them in, and they were all incredible. So we just went with him. And then the next day, Eric wrote back to us, and I felt like a total jerk because I had to be like, "Hey man, sorry, you took a little too long. You know, I know you're the best piper in the world, but."
Second best piper in the world.
Second best, best Irish, yeah, right. But yeah, so that's who you hear on the track, Tyler Duncan from Ann Arbor, and he totally killed it. And also Mike Olson, our longtime friend, acquaintance, and partner in crime, playing really cool cello parts in this track. So without any further ado, this is Year of the Rat from the Modest Revolution.
You stood high out of reach, there at the top of the tower. You blew out the clouds, blocked out the sun, no end to the pull and the power. A roll tide over the land, suddenly freighting and winding. Eyes sharp as a warrior's blade, but in your own smoke you were blinded. So come all you liars, you saints and lost souls. One day's black is another day's gold. It's a strange place to see you tonight, but it's all or nothing, and it's gone. another day's gold. It's a strange place to see you tonight, but now it's all or nothing. It's all or nothing, and it's gold. All you liars, you saints and lost souls. One day's black is another day's gold. It's a strange place to see you tonight, but it's all or nothing.
That was Year of the Rat. Short and sweet. That's a cool track. We will move on to track number 2, which is a song that Trevor wrote called Can't Trust the News. This song was written and recorded long before the concept of fake news and fake news media was pushed into all of our lives. And contrary to sort of the sound of the title of the song, it's not really an indictment of the news media. It's not meant to be sort of an anti-media song. Trevor, you said you were inspired by one of the songs in the paper. So for you, when you said "Can't Trust the News," I think that was one of the first lines that came to you, and then you kind of wrote the song around that idea. But what did it mean to you when you said "Can't Trust the News"?
Well, the particular article that I took inspiration from was about a woman who just everything in her life, it was just everything was kind of going wrong for her, and instead of being dragged down by what was going on around her, she decided to challenge herself to climb the 7 highest mountains in the world, or something like that. I forget exactly what it was, but it was some kind of, momentous challenge that she took upon herself to sort of take herself out of this rut. So the idea was just don't necessarily let the negativity around you bog you down, I guess.
Right.
And the whole idea of news, was certainly in our minds because we were taking inspiration from a newspaper. So I kind of like the irony of it as well.
Sure.
So
this song is probably, Craig, you played trumpet on the previous record,
Yeah.
but besides Let Me Go, there wasn't really like a trumpet feature the way that there is in this song. And I know that when we were recording the song and you had decided you wanted there to be sort of like a trumpet solo in this song, I think it was Penny Lane that you said you were kind of inspired by. Is that an accurate thing to say?
Yeah, I guess the solo ended up kind of a poor man's Penny Lane. I was just, it definitely was an influence. Always had to be. David Mason, great trumpeter. Yeah.
I remember, so when we went up to, this record was recorded at a studio called St. Clair Recording Company in Lexington, Kentucky, just outside of Lexington, which tragically no longer exists. But it was this incredible studio that had a huge live room, an amazing mixing room, a beautiful kitchen, and places for the whole band to sleep. We all had like bedrooms and places that we could stay. I remember Craig practicing this solo over and over and over and over and over and over again, like for literally weeks while we were there in the studio, sequestered away up in one of the bedrooms. And so pretty much anytime we stopped playing, we would hear from somewhere in the building, just over and over and over and over again. And that's kind of how it is, because sometimes we write these parts for records that really challenge us to a point where, like, when we write the part, we're not good enough to play, or we're not like at the point where we can play it confidently. And, you know,
That was definitely the case with me because I could not play it confidently. Trumpet had been my principal instrument. When I was in the music program at McMaster, I played in a jazz band, and that's when I was working at it, you know, full time, shall we say. I put it down for a long, long time, many years, and I had to build my lips back up. And no, you're right, I was not confident, and I wrote a solo that, you know, so many different types, so many different versions before finally arriving at one that I figured, okay, I could probably pull this one off live. And most of the time, I mostly got it.
So that actually brings up another interesting point that people might not know about this record, is that because St. Clair had such an amazing live room, one of the things we decided to do was, as part of our Kickstarter, to sell tickets to 100 fans to come out to the studio and record a live record right there in the studio playing some of these songs. Which, you know, sometimes when you record a record, you've been touring the songs for 7 or 8 months, and like you feel really confident on the parts. That wasn't the case with this album. We had never played almost any of these songs live. And so when we invited 100 people out, we had 2 shots. We did 2 nights, and we had 2 shots to get it right. And that meant, like, we were going to play Can't Trust the News live in front of 50 people in the studio for a live record, and Craig had 2 chances to nail this solo. And, you know, in the years since, having played the song hundreds of times, he kills it on stage now, and you wouldn't know to see it how stressful an experience that must have been, Craig, for you. But I can only imagine what it felt like.
Yeah, I mean, I completely blew it the first. It was just awful. I got all nervous, and my lips fell off, and I was just like, oh God. I mean, anyone who's a brass player out there knows what I'm talking about. It's you've got to have that. You got to have the chops, and you got to have the confidence.
Well, you killed it. And you can go on, people who are watching, you can go on YouTube on our channel after we're done here, and you can actually see the, because we released it as video as well. You can see the live at St. Clair footage of Can't Trust the News that we recorded while we were there in the studio, and Craig totally nailed the solo. So the only other thing I'll mention about this song is that we had our friend Joel, who was a friend of Zach's, came in and he played a really cool piano part for the sort of last third or quarter of this song. So if you've got headphones on and you hear piano, that is not me. That is our friend Joel. So I will head on from there into the song. This one's called Can't Trust the News.
Of one bloody final crash. Oh, you knew there was something, a bright little beacon, a kink in the dark. Now you walk with intention, a smile and a sword in your arms. Trust your eyes, they will follow the light. It's a new tragic story. Trust your heart, it will swallow the dark. It's a mecca of heartache and doom. You can't trust the news. Can't trust the news. Oh, the dark midnight runways as still as the lake of your younger years. When the sunshine was brighter, the laughing was lighter. You never gave in to your fears. Or you could call it a waste, a disaster, a chase for the ghost of love. But you spat out the skin and the seeds and the dirt on your tongue. Trust your eyes, they will follow the light. It's a new tragic story. can't trust the news. Can't trust the news. Trust your eyes, they will follow the light. It's a new tragic story. Trust your heart, it will swallow the dark. It's a mecca of heartache and doom. If you trust your eyes, they will follow the light. It's a new tragic story. Trust your heart, it will swallow the dark. It's a mecca of heartache and doom. You can't trust the news. Our cottage here on Lake Huron has an excruciating number of stairs between the lake and the cottage. The closest guess as to the number of stairs will win this particular trivia question. Now on with the show.
That was Can't Trust the News from the Modest Revolution. And as you can hear, Craig totally killed it on the trumpet solo. The next track on this record is a song that Trevor wrote called Down the Line. And Trev, do you want to give a quick sort of background on the inspiration for the song?
Yep, there was an obituary that day in the newspaper that was announcing the death of Earl Scruggs, a famous banjo player who sort of pushed, as I understand it, not a banjo aficionado by any means, but I think he kind of sort of pushed the limits of what was expected that you could do on a banjo. And he played in a variety of different genres as well on the banjo. So yeah, it was a fairly large obituary. So there was a bunch of different inspiration to draw from. So kind of loosely talks about him working in a factory before he decides to, to take a leap of faith and get out on the road and play music for a living. And it's about a hell of a crash. I think there was their tour bus crashed at one point, and I'm not sure if he or anyone else was injured in the accident, but there's a quick mention of that as well.
Cool. Yeah. It's funny, considering what we were talking about for the last song with Craig's trumpet solo. This one for me was the beast on the record because so something that happened in the course of recording this album, we did some pre-production for this album at the house I was living at in Guelph, Ontario, down in the basement. And I had just recently gotten an electric guitar amp, which I hadn't had since I was in high school. And so I had my electric guitar set up downstairs with my pedal board and all these cool pedals and my amplifier. And so as we were working on the pre-production for the record, Trevor wrote a lot of the songs on this album in DADGAD tuning, which is DADGAD tuning on acoustic guitar. And a lot of the songs really needed that big acoustic guitar. And so I was kind of filling in on electric just to sort of have parts in the background. But I never really anticipated playing a lot of electric guitar on the record. And then Trevor, you were saying your son Dale had some kind of a medical issue that you had to head home for during the recording of this record. And because of that, I wound up playing virtually all of the electric guitars on the album, which was the first, the last record, White Lake, I played like one guitar line in the song Follow on electric guitar, and that was it. And so suddenly I was kind of like thrown into the fire for this record and had to like do all these electric guitar parts. And this song, Down the Line, from the beginning, we kind of thought it's got this kind of chicken picking Chet Atkins sort of sound to it. We need one of those guitar solos in the middle of it. And like, I didn't know anything about playing that kind of guitar. And I got really sort of up in my own head about it. And I remember going upstairs with a bounce of the song on headphones with my guitar plugged in through Zach's Apogee Duet little interface into my laptop. And I think I spent the better part of 2 full days just looping that section of the song and trying to write a guitar solo. And, you know, it's like we were saying about the trumpet solo that Craig played. Like, when I wrote the part, I couldn't play it. And even when we recorded the part, I couldn't really play it.
Because I remember it's a tough part. I mean, but I remember in the live at St. Clair recording we did the show. You know, you had to sit down and play the electric guitar part for that, which you've never done since. But it was so new to you that you were able to play it more confidently sitting down. So
it's just like Craig said. Like the first night, I was like, I'm gonna get this. And so we had 2 nights. The first night, I tried doing it standing up. And for people who don't play guitar, it's actually the guitar that's back over my shoulder here. That orange hollow body is the one that I played on the. At least I don't know if it's the one on the record, but it's the one that I played on the live at St. Clair, the live thing. And it's just so much easier to play when the guitar is higher up on your chest and you've kind of got your hands right up in front of you instead of, the rock and roll way of having the low slung guitar. And I totally blew it the first night, like unsalvageably blew it. And so, we had one more chance at it. And so the second day, I was like, it's not going to look as cool, guys, but I got to sit down on my amplifier, stare at my hands, and like get through this track and like play this solo. And I actually think what we're going to do for this song, so the live at St. Clair recording, we did it in the same space with the same instruments. The drums were completely on their own, isolated in a booth, and it was all through the same SSL 800 soundboard. Like, it's all the same gear. So the live at St. Clair recording actually sounds remarkably like the Modest Revolution recording. And so for this particular song, I think we're actually going to just toss in the video so you guys can actually hear the live at St. Clair version of Down the Line. If you, I know it kind of runs contrary to the idea of a listening party, but if you want to hear the actual version of the song, that's available on our YouTube channel too. But buckle up. This is the live version of Trevor's song, Down the Line.
Fire, bones of coal, these piston arms are born to roll down the line. If you don't find it, it finds you. If you don't drive, it's what you do down the line. I see an open stage, a crowd of people sit and wait, and oh, my fingers burn. Mother dear, please don't be hurt, for if I stay, I won't be hurt. No, my fingers burn, and oh, my fingers burn, burn, burn. Focus on the work at hand, twisting bolts upon the plan, down the line. Heavy is the steady wage, pulls the sun down on the day, down the line. I see an open stage, a crowd of people sit and wait. No, my fingers burn. Mother dear, please don't be hurt. For if I stay, I won't be hurt. No, my fingers burn, and oh, my fingers burn, burn, burn. Saturday morning was a hell of a crash, but you gotta keep rolling on the trail of cash, down, down the line. I see an open stage, a crowd of people sit and wait. No, my fingers burn. Mother dear, please don't be hurt. For if I stay, I won't be hurt. No, my fingers burn, and oh, my fingers burn, 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 burn. Thanks very much.
Yeah, this is it's a Farfisa. It's called a piano organ one. So I guess a combination of a piano and an organ. Found it at a Goodwill thrift store a few days before leaving. Yeah, it's
allegedly for your son.
Allegedly, yeah. I told my wife it was for my son, and
That's why she
immediately
didn't buy it, right?
took it down to the U.S. Yeah, for the
Immediately took it to
recording.
the States. Don't worry, he'll get lots of use out of it.
Truth be told, he was actually a bit frightened by the sound. It's a pretty loud instrument, and he touched the keys and was sort of shocked by it. Turn it on, and there's a fan that starts up, and that blows the, I guess they're reeds?
It sounds like reeds, yeah. I mean, I don't really know, but...
And again, similar sound to an accordion, whereas an accordion, you'd be doing...
Yeah.
Operating the fan yourself. This has an electric fan in it. It was, yeah, it's cool. I gather it's from the 1960s, made in the 1960s, made in Italy, imported to Montreal. Don't find a lot of things under $100 that are
Made in Italy and imported to Montreal.
these days, yeah.
From the 1960s.
That's right. The more sounds you have to work with, you know, the more interesting the textures of the pieces can be. You know, and that's something that we've always experimented with. Craig will show you all the instruments he's got in his room there. You never know when you start up. I'm sitting in this room and everyone's set up. You never know what you're going to hear from Craig's channel on the board. You know,
Yeah.
so.
You start playing, it's like, could be trumpet, could be whistles, could be bells, could just be like him screaming in the background. Just close the piano lid on his hands.
It's a lot of fun. You know, we love recording and we love writing music.
3, 4. All right, 2,
It's gonna be lots of that.
4. 2, 3, 4.
gonna take you home. Remember, if you fall, fall with grace. Don't let them see the fear upon your face. And if you break the reins, it's better up in lights than down in flames. City soldier, tall and proud, find your pleasure wherever you're allowed. Underwater, somebody's gotta take you home and keep you on your throne. But if you fall, fall with grace. Don't let them see the fear upon your face. And if you break the reins, it's better up in lights than down in flames. And I will do the same. Bastard brother, so far away. If I call you, I wonder what you'll say. Little wonder, home is just a word to me now. Remember, if you fall, fall with grace. Don't let them see the fear upon your face. And if you break the reins, it's better up in lights than down in flames. And I will do the same.
That was Scarecrow from the Modest Revolution. The next track on this record is a song called Balto. And Balto is, it seems like pretty much anybody who grew up in the United States knows the story of Balto because there was a Disney movie about Balto. We were not aware of the story of Balto, but there was a sort of this day in history thing in the issue of the newspaper. And it was about Balto and the story of Balto. Trevor, I'll let you tell the story because I'm going to mess up the details, and I would rather you do it.
Yeah, it was just a really quick, few sentences long. This day in 1925, so it would have been, I guess, when did the newspaper come out? March 30th?
Mm-hmm.
No, March 30th, 1925 is when there was a diphtheria outbreak in a small town of Nome, Alaska, and they tried flying in this the serum medication for the people, and that didn't work because the weather was so crazy cold and snowy. And they tried a train, that didn't work, so their only option was a dog sled relay. And I was supposed to, the fastest they'd done that distance on dog sleds before had been something like a week, and they cut it down. It was just everybody worked together, and they cut it down to 4 days or something like that. It was a pretty impressive feat, and as a result of those efforts, only a few people lost their lives in this town. It could have been pretty horrific. Could you imagine if a pandemic swept through?
Can't imagine, no.
No.
We went to visit Balto. Mark was just reminding me. Mark, where was that?
Cleveland Museum of Art History? History, I guess.
Natural history.
Natural history. There you go.
Yeah.
Balto resides there in his old age. He has been properly taxidermied, and you can go to the Cleveland Museum of Natural History and you can visit Balto. So we went and got a picture taken with him.
I offered him a cookie. He said, "No thanks, I'm stuffed." Okay, forget it.
Craig, you played an instrument on this track that I think this might be the only track in history that you played this particular instrument on.
Yeah, I'm playing the red pipes on this one. And the red pipes are an instrument that is made in Germany. It's an electronic bagpipe, and you can get a few different sounds out of it. And one of them is you can have a small pipe sound, and you can also have a Highland pipe sound, but when you tune it up or down, the lower you go, the more it starts to sound like an oboe, because they are similar. They have double reeds. However, it happens to be in a synthesized version, but yeah, that's what I used. I used the red pipe.
The red pipe's crazy.
And I was in the key of G minor, which is unusual for a bagpipe sound. So
I know that I used my Digitech Whammy Wah pedal for the fiddle part in this track. This is one track that when we play it live, my fiddle part is like from the first note to the last note. I never stop playing fiddle. It's just like all these different parts, so there's a lot to kind of keep track of. But on the record, I did this thing in the choruses. That's my whammy pedal that I hit. So I can't really do that live, but that's on the record. And I'm gonna give people a taste of something really special here too. Sometime near the end of the recording process in Lexington, Bruce, you were recording percussion parts, I think. Is that right for this track?
Yeah, tambourine, I think.
Tambourine. And he told us, we'd been going kind of over and over this one section of the song, The Girl I Know. I don't know if you call that the pre-chorus or something. And I remember you yelled to Zach, "Just give me a take." And we didn't know what you were going to do. We thought it was going to be another percussion part or something. And Bruce gave us his own vocal interpretation of this song and just kind of made it up on the spot. So, and this is what it sounded like.
My legs, my eyes, my ears, I cannot run, cannot see, cannot hear.
It's a girl I love and she loves me too. And we're gonna make babies, have a big family, and with a backyard, and there's gonna be a tree house, and then maybe a fort where there's no girls allowed for the kids, and everyone's gonna have ice cream. It's gonna be awesome! Fuck yeah!
So that is Bruce's his turn as a lead vocalist for Enter the Haggis for that one track.
One take.
Bruce,
One take.
One take. No, it's not one take.
Oh, that's right. I punched in. 2 takes.
Yeah.
2 takes.
He did one take, and then he was dissatisfied with the way it ended, so he went back and punched in and did a second take. And I will mention that when I got married, these guys were all in my groomsmen party, and I made Bruce a T-shirt with a wolf howling at the moon with all the lyrics of his version of Balto superimposed over the moon, which I'm sure he wears.
I prefer to think of it as a sled dog howling at the moon. But
so that's that. That's Balto. This has actually become one of sort of a fan favorite song. A lot of people love this track. So
before we move on, Bruce, I think there were a few other non-standard kit percussion things besides tambourine, right? Didn't you have some kind of other drum setup and variety of things going on? Can't remember. It was a typical setup, but I had the toms muffled, just to create sort of a different effect, kind of like what we were talking about on the last album for Let Me Go and for maybe Whistleblower.
Yeah, just kind of a muted tom thing gives it
I thought
more
you had
of
a
that.
big, like a skin drum, didn't you have one of those? Did you use it live at one point, or?
I'm not sure that. Yeah, there may have been something like that at one point. This was just like the verses are just me playing this rhythmic thing on the toms, kind of sort of mirrors what Brian's playing on the fiddle. Yeah, and they're just muted up, either with tea towels again or pillowcases, or sometimes I cut the hoop off an old drum head, so I just have like a plastic disc left. That's actually probably what I was using, and they just kind of sit on there, and they sort of muffle the toms. And I maybe had some other junk sort of sitting on the heads to kind of rattle around and stuff.
Well, without any further ado, this is Balto from the Modest Revolution.
Carry on, Balto, carry on, Balto, carry on, Balto, straight through the storm. You are my legs, my eyes, my ears. I cannot run, cannot see, cannot hear. Swallow a coal fire, swallow a coal fire, swallow a coal fire, hot in our lungs. You are my legs, my eyes, my ears. I cannot run, cannot see, cannot hear. There's a girl I love waiting for me with a child in her arms. A girl I love is waiting for me with a child in her arms. Don't hold me back. Oh, I can feel it so close. Don't hold me back. I'll die for the white light of nose. Don't hold me back. My love, this is all I can give. Don't hold me back. Under the darkness, it's hope I can feel it. My darling, hold on, my darling, hold on, my darling, no, I won't delay. You are my legs, my eyes, my ears. I cannot run, cannot see, cannot hear. The girl I love, waiting for me with a child in her arms. A girl I love is waiting for me with a child in her arms. A girl I love is waiting for me with a child in her arms. There's a girl I love waiting for me with a child in her arms. Don't hold me back. Oh, I can feel it so close. Don't hold me back. I die for the white light of nose. Don't hold me back. My love, this is all I can give. Don't hold me back. Under the darkness is hope I can feel it.
Hey, Trevor here with another trivia question. What year did Balto lead his sled team into the town of Nome, Alaska, delivering much needed diphtheria medication? Now back to the show.
From the band Enter the Haggis, and we are here in the St. Clair recording studio in Lexington, Kentucky, working on a new record called Modest Revolution. And we just finished tracking the beds for a song called Letters. This song was inspired by a story in the Globe and Mail, the newspaper that the new record, Modest Revolution, is based off of. It's about two mid-70s gentlemen who were out in the Nevada desert and their car got stuck in the mud and couldn't get out and didn't have cell phones, didn't have any kind of way of contacting anybody to let them know where they were and that they needed help. Yeah, one of the gentlemen, Laszlo Sabo, went off after about 4 days looking for help. Thought he'd kind of venture out and see what he could do. And James, one gentleman, stayed behind. He just started probably thinking he wasn't going to survive, and just started writing a letter to his wife every day, hoping that if he does pass, that someone would find these eventually, and they could get these to her. By the end of the week or so, he was rescued, and they later found the other gentleman had passed a couple kilometers away. He didn't make it, but James did survive, and to tell the story, and this is the idea of him writing these letters to his wife, kind of reaching out maybe one last time to his wife is kind of the inspiration for the song. This song definitely gets pretty epic, pretty big at the end of it. We got a lot of instrumentation on it. There's going to be trumpet and stuff like that. Two gentlemen go off thinking they're going to have a good time in the desert one day, and one of them doesn't come back.
So this is another song that Craig played a horn on, and for whatever reason, right from the beginning, we wanted a specific kind of soft English horn kind of sound for this. And Craig, I think you ended up with a flugelhorn. Is that right?
You are correct, sir.
Where did you get the flugelhorn?
I'm not sure where it came from. I don't know what it was made of. It was pretty awful. I didn't have one, and between yourself and Zach, you insisted that I play a flugelhorn, not the trumpet. And so I said to Zach, well, Zach, can you get me a flugelhorn? Because I don't know of any flugelhorn stores around here.
In Lexington, Kentucky. If I recall correctly, I think Tim, who was sort of the assistant man extraordinaire at the studio there, I think Tim went to a pawn shop or something in Lexington and found a flugelhorn, right?
Yeah, I think that's what happened. I thought Zach was able to find one on eBay.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. No, because you returned it.
Well,
I think he returned it by mail.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it came by mail and went back by mail. And all I remember about this horn was it was just terrible. It was like you could put as much oil as you wanted. You could put motor oil in the pistons and it would still grind. Tone was okay though, but as you like to say, Brian, we bought it, played it, recorded it, and returned it. And after that, you henceforth made it be known that it shall be known as the frugal horn, since it cost us nothing.
Cheaper than hiring a flugelhorn player, right? One thing I remember about the recording of this track is, Trevor, you had gone home for a couple of weeks, and when you came back, we had put layer after layer after layer after layer on this song, and the first time you heard it, you were convinced that it was too fast.
I was.
And you wanted us to go back and redo things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for people who haven't been in the studio before, it's not a small thing in tempo.
That's a stupid thing to suggest.
No, but I mean, obviously, like, whatever's best for the song. We had the time, we were there, we were set up in the studio. If we'd had to go back and completely re-record the song, it was an option, but it would have meant going back and completely redoing everything that we had done, including the frugal horn, which I think at that point had been mailed back to eBay. And Bruce, I think what wound up happening is that you just went in and simplified the chorus pattern. Is that right? Do you remember?
I remember, I remember what I was doing or what was happening not working. I don't remember if it was before or after Trevor's.
I think it was after, and
Okay.
I think you went in, and I don't really know that you changed it much, but for non-musicians out there, you can play on the beat, you can play on top of the beat or behind the beat slightly, and it's a subtlety. But as to the best of my recollection, Bruce went in and he played slightly behind the beat, a little bit, just to sort of bring the intensity down, and that did the trick for me.
Yeah.
It's a pretty subtle thing, and it's when you think about learning an instrument, you're playing along with a metronome and you're trying to play with the metronome, but it's even more complicated than that when you're talking about the feel of something, especially when it comes to drums. I think, you're playing ahead of the beat or behind the beat. You're just ever so slightly on either side of the beat, and I don't think you were on top of the beat. I don't think you were pushing things along. Because sometimes you want that. You could explain this better, I'm sure, as a drummer, Bruce. But I think there are times where I'm thinking of Penny Black, where we did. Two Bare Hands, and I remember you went in to recut the end of the drums on that, and you just like really pushed it, so you were like super on top of the beat, just to like really drive the intensity. You felt that was necessary, and I feel like this was kind of the opposite situation, where you went in and you had to kind of bring things, dial back the intensity a little bit, and it just really sat in the pocket more when you did that.
So yeah, in the end, we didn't wind up having to re-record the song, because just shifting the drums back a little bit like that kind of saved the recording that way, and made a huge difference. Especially, like the choruses, and I think the outro too, just because the song kind of speeds up for the end of the song.
It was easier than shifting everything else forward in those parts.
Which, the Mutt Lange approach. I think the only other thing that I really remember about this song recording-wise is that I played a Rickenbacker 12-string electric guitar for a lot of those arpeggiated parts in the choruses, which is the same. It's the same like 12-string electric that like Tom Petty played for just about every hit that Tom Petty ever had. Was this like Rickenbacker 12-string? And Zach McNees, our producer, his uncle had this, and so he brought it to the studio, and it sounds amazing, but it was such a bitch to tune, because there's 12 strings and like it has to be exact. And there was times in the recording where I was retuning like it wasn't even like between takes, it was like between chords. Like I would play, I think it's in E flat or something, or I would play like the part that was in E flat, and then we would stop recording, and I would have to retune the guitar to make sure that it was just right for the B flat chord, and then I would play that part of the song. And I remember that there was one of the people who had paid for the Kickstarter to be on the album. Her name's Claire. She was there when I was recording these parts, and it took me like half a day to record just the 12-string electric parts for this song, and she was sitting there on the couch watching the whole time, and by the end of it I could tell she was way more frustrated and bored than I was. And when we finally finished, she's like, I had no idea that this is what recording guitars was like. And I was like, no, it's not. This is just what it's like when I'm recording guitars. Most people
E flat is a pretty strange key to have for guitars in the first place.
That's what capos are for, but it was a beast. It was a thing. Final thing I'll say is I remember the very first time we ever performed this song live was at the Mock Chunk Opera House in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. And I remember it being a pretty special thing. It was a really cool performance. I'm saying that now, but for all I know, you guys are going to correct me. I remember working on this song at the Stone Mountain Art Center in Brownfield, Maine. but I don't think we actually performed it that night. I'm pretty sure the first time we played it was at Jim Thorpe. Is that right? Do you guys remember? No one's going to correct me. Okay. We're going to go with that as canon. That is the gospel truth. This song is called Letters.
Under a sinking sun, in an ocean of sky, dust and bones, the echoes of rusty guns. I'm not too young to die. Your love is the compass rose, it's steadfast through the sand and stone. Winds carried these letters home to Joan. Since I was just a boy with a travel in mind, and the bright moon steals the heart of Orion's joy, we trace a simple line. Your love is a compass rose, it's steadfast through the sand and stone. Winds carried these letters home to Joan. Old memories come to life, a last dance in this amber light. Wind carried these letters home tonight. There was a song that played for you in my head. Your love is the compass rose, it's steadfast through the sand and stone. Wind carried these letters home to Joan. Old memories come to life, a last dance in this amber light. Carry these letters home tonight. All these things on my mind, now that I'm taking the time to write. Letters swirl like 1,000 white birds in the sky up above her. I'm a flag unfurled, and I'm sending my heart to a different lover. See these letters swirl like 1,000 white birds in the sky up above her. I'm a flag unfurled, and I'm sending my heart to a dear friend and lover. In the sky up above her.
we're joined here by our good friend and longtime collaborator, Zach McNees. Zach's talking to us from his place in Brooklyn. And we thought we'd get his thoughts on a few things on the album, because Zach recorded, mixed, produced, and did about half of the fulfillment for the Kickstarter of the Modest Revolution. So the album definitely would not have happened without you, Zach.
It's a great record. The thing that I'm most proud of when I listen to that album now, 6-7 years later, is I still wouldn't change a thing.
Really.
And it doesn't sound, nothing about the sound of that record to me is dated. Everything still works, and I really love the way that record sounds, and the songs. To me, one of the most magical things about that record is Year of the Rat, which for that record, that was such a cool experience, because I think we all got to Kentucky and that song didn't exist.
Yeah.
Right. I distinctly remember we were working on something else, and I had a microphone in whatever room Trevor was in when he was just practicing and playing stuff. And I turned that microphone on and I listened to what Trevor was playing, which was the beginnings of the first chords of Year of the Rat. And I was like, oh my God, whatever that is, it's going to go on the record. I distinctly remember being okay, this needs to start with the guitars, and then the whole band has to kick in, and it has to become this big thing. And one of my favorite things about that song is most people don't know that Trevor's vocal in that song is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's literally 2 takes. And he sang that song all the way through. And the first half of the very first take is the first half of what's on the record.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And the second half of the vocal on that song is the second half of the second take. That was it. And the first take was one of the first and only times I've been in a studio where you and I were holy crap. He was hitting notes full volume and full range that we were we didn't know Trevor had that in him.
He goes for the high B on that. It's so rouge alive.
Super high. Yeah, super great. Nailed it. I mean, and I learned years and years ago from Neil, who produced Soapbox Heroes, you never record a scratch. If you're going to record, you better use a good microphone, because you never know when that performer is going to just put out a performance that you're going to want to keep. So we had a $10,000 microphone on him.
Yeah.
And I'll be damned if we didn't use most of that first take unedited. It was remarkable. I really love that song, and when I listen to that album, I'm so proud of every sound on that song. It's so great. What's really funny is when I listened to some of that record today, and I have the most selective memory when I was listening to Down the Line, which is such a barn burner. I'm so stoked about how that song came out. But there's a line there's a line from Trevor, and I think it's in the second verse or something, where I still hear the alternate take that I wanted to use.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He did one take. He was down the line. I'm I think we really debated it for a while, and when I hear the song, I still hear the other take of that line in my head.
Funny.
Really funny.
The craziest idea we had, halfway through our Kickstarter, we decided we were going to try and do a live record in the studio, because St. Clair had that incredible, huge live room and all the amazing gear that we had there, and we were already set up to play. And so we sold 50 tickets 2 nights in a row, so 100 tickets to the show. We were also filming a documentary at the same time. We were doing all kinds of stuff, and I wasn't really around for a lot of the setup for the live recording. But from your perspective, I mean, that must have been a heck of an undertaking to just kind of throw that in the middle of recording a record.
When I think about what we pulled off, it's so ridiculously ambitious. It's amazing that it wasn't a total disaster.
Yeah.
And it's such a great record. I'm super proud of it, but the technical logistics of it were really unbelievable. We had to do we're doing a couple of things at one time. We're recording a live multi-tracked album in a studio with a live audience, but we also had to set up some sort of a PA in the live room so that the audience could hear everything that was going on, because
Right.
it was like you and Mark and Trevor in one room, Bruce in another room, and then Craig in another room. So like, if we didn't have a PA, no one was ever going to hear the drums or anything that Craig did, and the whole thing was just going to be like a total mess if you're in the room. So like, we had to bring in a PA, and we had to create sub-mix buses from the big SSL mixing console to feed to our assistant Tim, who was doing the live PA mix in the live room, so the audience could have a reasonably good like listening experience while we were making this live album. So we were just like, all the microphones on the drums were coming into the big mixing console, and then they were getting bussed back to Tim, who could like put them back through the PA, so it makes like it sound like Bruce was in the room. It was like, I honestly to this day have never used that SSL mixing console that much. Like, we had to map out exactly how we were going to route all of this stuff.
And we even wound up like we wound up conscripting a couple of extra people to run cameras, because Daniel, the documentary filmmaker who was there with us, he didn't bring any crew. It was just him. So people probably don't know this, but the Live at St. Clair footage, the DVD footage, one of the cameramen is James Campbell.
Oh, right.
James came all the way out to the studio for that recording, and just as a guest, and we grabbed him and we conscripted him and we made him. All he had to do is turn a camera on and off. But yeah, he's credited as one of our cameramen on that documentary, on that film.
Yeah, I mean, one of the coolest things that I love about that record is you guys are such a great live band, and I'm always trying to capture you guys as much as possible in playing together, even when we're making studio type records. So it's not surprising to me that my favorite versions of like Noseworthy and Another Round and there are a couple of other things on there are like my favorite versions of those songs.
Yeah, agreed.
They're great. And like Another Round has like really evolved over the years from being played live so many times. So when we put it on that live record, it's just like, it's so good. It's great.
Well, that's awesome. Well, man, I don't want to take too much of your time here, and we got to get back to some music. But thanks for jumping on the camera with us and giving some of your perspective. We'll have to get you back involved for another one later time, because you've worked on so many of our records. I mean, maybe when we do the Broken Arms one, because you end up mixing that album.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's great to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Cheers. Be safe there.
We recorded our Modest Revolution album in Kentucky, and my question is, which famous sporting event is also referred to as the Run for the Roses and is fought between 3-year-old athletes? Now back to the show.
So this next track is called Pardon, and it's a song that I wrote, and I think I had bits and pieces of this song written for months or years before we actually put it all together into a song. It's probably the most just kind of straight ahead rock song that we've ever recorded. There's no fiddle, there's no pipes, it's just like a guitar rock song. One of the things that's really special about me for this particular song is that it is the only electric guitar on the record that I didn't play, was the solo for Pardon, because Trevor had to go home for a while, and when he came back, I think Trev, you came back like 4 or 5 days before like we had to be done there at the studio. And I kind of insisted. I was like, I left this one thing because I wanted you to play a guitar solo, just this like shrieky, feedbacky guitar solo in Pardon. And I remember that the concept that we came up with was just to make the most noise we could possibly make. And Zach told you to go into the main room and kneel at the altar of rock. And do you remember what that was like?
It was amazing. You had one very large amp or a variety of amps. I can't remember exactly.
I think it was a bunch of them. I think he'd wired like the Dr. Z and the Marshall and like a bunch of cabinets and.
Yeah, and it was just kind of set up, centrally located. It was very artfully done. There was a stool there, and an electric guitar or multiple electric guitars. But I think the thing that surprised me most about it was that I woke up in the morning, and before I even had a chance to have a coffee, Brian, at that time in our lives anyway, was not often up before I was in the morning. And I got up sort of, out of bed, and both Zach and Brian were pretty excited and suggested that I come in here to play this guitar solo right away.
People don't think of like crazy rock guitar solos being recorded at 9 o'clock in the morning. But what I remember is that we had like a pair of crazy sound isolating headphones, which we may have even like taped to your head to try and to make it as isolating as possible, because the plan was to just crank the hell out of every amplifier in the room, so that, and we gave you Zach's SG, his Gibson SG.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Which was this guitar, it's like an old guitar from like the 80s or 90s or something, that it would feed back instantly.
With no amplifier. Yeah.
Yeah. Just sitting in the room, it would feed back. But because of that, you pretty much had to keep playing at all times during the solo, because if you stopped for a second, the feedback would kill you.
Yeah, it basically played itself. I just held the thing. Yeah.
But I remember watching through the control room window, and you were literally on your knees in front of the amplifier, leaning your head back and just wailing away on this guitar, and it was just shrieking
in my pajamas. Yeah.
Zach was a little annoyed after you set it on fire when you poured the fluid on it. Yeah.
I may have spilled my coffee on it. I don't know.
Yeah. So we didn't play this one live too many times, although we have done it. We have done it once or twice. It's a fun one. It's a rock song. It's called Pardon. That was Pardon. The next track is a song called Hindsight, which I wrote. When I wrote this song, and I think I've told this story before, I think I actually told this on stage at Kansas City Irish Fest when we were there this last year. Ever since we met the Elders, who, for those of you who somehow don't know, are an amazing Irish band from Kansas City, Missouri. First time we ever saw them, they played a song that Ian Byrne, their singer, had written called Men of Erin. And ever since then, we have wanted to write a Men of Erin. And so every couple albums, we've tried to write an a cappella song that we could all just sing together with no instruments. And every single time, it's wound up turning into something completely different from that. And this song is the version of that happened on this record. I wrote this intending it to be just an a cappella 4 or 5 part harmony vocal song, which is why it kind of sounds like a church hymn. But for whatever reason, when we were working on it, it wound up kind of being a little more piano-based, and it just never really made sense as an a cappella song, and then we wound up throwing the bagpipes onto the end of it and doing a glorious key change and getting the organ and stuff in there. But we weren't really sure. I kept on saying that this song was, we had to throw it away, that it just wasn't going to work. And Trev, I think you were the one who, it was either you or Bruce, had found like a Mute Math song, is that right?
That was Trevor.
Do you remember that, Trev?
Yeah, I don't remember the Mute Math song, but I was thinking of that. It was a Mute Math song, that's right. But there was that Pat Metheny song, "Long Way Home," or "Long Train." What is it called?
Oh, no?
Yeah, not Long Train Running.
Last Train Home by
Last Train Home. Yeah, that's it.
by Metheny. Pat Metheny.
Yeah. So it has a similar vibe.
Was that an inspiration for you for the drum part, Bruce?
I guess it's probably an amalgam of kind of what's happening in that Mute Math song, and then sort of that, yeah, the Pat Metheny thing. He just basically does that accented pattern that I play in Hindsight pretty much the whole song, I think. Yeah, so it's probably a mashup of those two ideas.
It's probably the only song that we've ever recorded that you really did just kind of record a loop, which we then looped, right? Like, I don't think there's anything else we've done that you kind of did that, where you kind of like built like a drum pattern which just stays the exact same all the way through the song. And then, I mean, you did some like cymbal swells and some like auxiliary percussion and things, but
right.
I didn't realize it was a loop.
I think it is.
Because when we play it live now, I change it in subtle ways just to sort of build it and have it progress a little bit through the song. But I don't remember if there's more than one pattern or not. Yeah, it might just be one pattern the whole time, with other layers of textures, adding in at different points.
And Joel came in for this one too and played the Hammond organ, which kind of comes in halfway through and builds up and gets more and more epic and more church-like. And yeah, it's cool. It wound up being a cool kind of cross between the original sort of a cappella idea and that kind of electronic influenced thing that it turned into. Mark, I remember you saying that there was something, some sort of a mind twist for you trying to play like the bass guitar part and sing the backup vocals in this song.
I think there was at first. It took us a long time to start playing it live. I think we only started maybe a couple years ago for the first time.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's just a constant thing. Sometimes the harder songs to play technically are easier to sing along to. This one, for some reason, was just a little weird, but I've got it now. It just took some time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was also going to jump in and say something about the bag. I don't think bagpipes were thought of as being in this song off the top, but I think it was like in the actual recording of it, we decided we wanted the bagpipes and tried to figure out how to get them into it. I don't know if we were playing it in E, and then obviously had to change to A when we decided to put the pipes in, if it was in A originally, and then we decided we didn't want both parts being in the same key. But I don't think pipes were initially part of the idea.
Yeah, you're probably right. We wound up kind of getting lucky that the vocal melody was more or less playable on bagpipes, which isn't always the case. But yeah, we had to figure out a way of getting from E to A so that Craig could jump in on the pipes. And make it extra glorious. Yeah, this is a pretty song. It's kind of our church hymn of the album. This one's called Hindsight.
Eyes in a mirror.
Trevor here with another trivia question. I'm standing here on the shores of Lake Huron, which connects with another lake to formally make up the largest body of fresh water in the world. What lake connects to Lake Huron?
That was hindsight. Here on the Modest Revolution Throwback Thursday listening party. Thank you everybody for joining us here on YouTube. We're having fun as we always do on these listening parties. Please say hi in the chat, and if you feel so inclined, we do have a tip jar set up at enterthehaggis.com/tipjar for all of your extra Bitcoin you feel like throwing at us. So the next song, I've just got kind of a brief intro for it, and we'll get right back into some music. But this is a song that I wrote, which was inspired directly by another obituary in the newspaper, in the Globe and Mail. And the obituary said there was a woman named Cheryl who had passed away, and the whole obituary said, Cheryl, she's left behind her loving sons who were everything that any mother could ever want sons to be, who were supportive and loving and gave her grandchildren and, were a huge part of her life. And to the love of her life, the man of her dreams, the man who brought her all the happiness in the world that she ever could have wanted, and her husband. Which I thought was incredible, because this poor guy, whoever he is out there, was reduced to being a footnote in someone else's obituary. And so it kind of came together. I had a few sort of lyrical ideas going into this song, and the whole song kind of coalesced around or congealed around this particular obituary. And I wrote it about him. I wrote it about the footnote, which is why the song is called Footnote. If I recall correctly, Bruce, you wrote one word of the lyrics for this song.
Was it Toledo?
It was Toledo, yeah. Because I spent so much time working on this song, bitching about how every song on the radio was about California. And it's been, 3 years since she left him in, and I didn't actually know where Cheryl was from. It didn't say in the obituary, so I needed like a 3-syllable city name to just kind of throw in, and I didn't want it to be anywhere in California. And
Toronto wouldn't do, eh?
Toronto? Nah, I just felt a little too on the nose, and then Bruce suggested Toledo, and it was perfect. So that was 3 years since she left him in Toledo. I don't know. It was kind of a fun one to record, just kind of a guitar rock song with some bagpipes. Oh yeah, Zach, our producer, never forgave me because this was like the one and only kind of pop rock song he thought that I had written for the record, and there's no repeated lyrics in the song for the most part. So every time it goes to a chorus, the pop standard is when you go to a chorus, you repeat the lyrics so that people have something to sing along with. And considering this whole song is about the idea of a song that people are going to sing along with, the fact that every chorus I changed the lyrics pissed Zach off to no end. And he kept trying to convince me to go back and change the lyrics so that it would be the same thing every time. But I just remember that being kind of a funny fight that we had. Anyways, that's all I got for this one. This is called Footnote.
Day, another cameo, another artificial heart beats on and on. He's got a job, he's got some furniture, and he's got friends who can't tell anything is wrong. But he hates his own atomic gardener, and he swears he won't be living here that long. got a car and maps of everywhere, and he's put stars on every city name he knows, but he can't move. He can't go anywhere, 'cause he can't think of any place he wants to go. And he knows she's out there somewhere chasing hurricanes, putting miles between them every day she's gone. It's been 3 years since she left him in Toledo, but he'll always have that song, and every time that it comes on, he sings along. Time that it comes on, even if he sings it wrong, he sings along. La 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 la.
Footnote from the Modest Revolution. We moved from there into track 10 on the record, which is called Copper Leaves, which is a song that Trevor wrote, inspired by the retirement of a piece of Canadian currency. Is that right, Trev?
It is, but you gave it the song its title, and I thought it was I think so. Huh? Copper Leaves. Yeah, I thought it was cool. A cool play on words.
All right. I don't remember doing that, but I'll take credit for it. Give some more background. What is the story here? What happened?
Oh, well, it's exactly that. It was costing Canada more than a penny. I don't know how much it cost, 2 or 3 cents to make a penny, and we decided that was ridiculous. And that I mean, to this day, I still pick up pennies if I see them, but I don't. Even though I don't have anything to do with them.
I do the same thing, and I spend all my pennies in the U.S. whenever.
Aha!
Oh, see?
I do try that as well, yeah.
I do remember that there was something that started happening shortly after we started recording, or started playing this song live.
Yeah, well, I think, the first time, I'm not sure how long it went on for, and I don't quite remember until it was mentioned by someone. I don't know, maybe I never got hit in the head with one, or got hit in the head with too many of them, but we did start getting rained on stage with pennies when we go into this song. And it bought us many a Freezy Pop after each show. So
yeah, sure.
Very nice.
We should write a song about $100 bills.
Yeah, exactly. Just
G-strings, right?
What's that, Greg?
We'll all wear G-strings.
Yeah, sure. It doesn't work quite as well to try and tuck pennies into a G-string. I have tried.
You can get them in that front pouch part.
Oh, I must be wearing it backwards.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I don't know why, but I almost yelled, "The South shall rise again."
Oh yeah.
We did a photo shoot while we were down at St. Clair. We're pretty separated where all of us live, so it's being in a studio is often a chance for us, especially we have a new record, we're trying to promote it. It's a good chance to do a new photo shoot. So we went downtown Lexington, Kentucky, and I don't exactly, anyone else remember how this all went down?
Bruce, I feel like you were probably, you were interacting with this guy more than we were.
It was just a Lexingtonian who happened to be walking by, and he just burst out unprompted with, "The South shall rise again." And yeah, and
over and over again, right? Like,
yeah. We struck up a short conversation with him for a couple minutes, but yeah, that was the gist of basically.
Yeah. I remember we did I think during that photo shoot, some guys came by in a car and we're all posing, and they said, "Your band sucks." and I thought, oh right, we look like a band.
You know what's funny? I actually totally unprompted thought about that today, that exact moment, because Rose and I were out for a walk, and we walked past a woman who was I guess she had hired a guy who she was doing a photo shoot on like a bridge that we were walking past. And as we walked by, Rose made a point of telling her she looked gorgeous. And I thought that was just such a nice thing to do, because like, I mean, she did look nice, but it was like that little self-esteem boost that you get from like a random stranger giving you a compliment. And like Rose, you know, she has a tendency to do that kind of thing, to try and sort of empower people. And I remember thinking as we walked by, I was like, that was so nice of you to say that to her. I remember this one time we did a photo shoot and a guy drove by and just yelled, "Your band sucks." And it was the exact opposite effect of what you achieved with this woman on the bridge.
I mean, I don't know that it would have been much better had they yelled out that we looked gorgeous.
That's true. That's a very good point. Amazing. All right. Well, this is one of the sort of more acoustic-oriented songs on the record, and it's called Copper Leaves. Here we go.
We all abused you, threw you on the tracks and stood with bated brain. A simple thrill to kill the boredom of a wasted summer day. And now they're showing you the door. 100 years and 50 more, these cold machines punched out your leaves. And though your aspirations soared, the sidewalk would not take your seed. Now they're showing you the door. I think we'll find it hard. I think we'll find it hard. I think we'll find it hard to walk without your rattling bones. The story broke clear and gold. A nickel was the only one who screamed, "God save me from this fate!" Oh darling, I just can't believe. Now they're showing you the door. I think we'll find it hard. I think we'll find it hard. I think we'll find it hard to walk without your rattling bones. Walk without your rattling bones. We can't afford to keep the change. 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 and stood with faded brain. A simple thrill to kill the boredom of a wasted summer day. Now they're showing you the door. I think we'll find it hard. I think we'll find it hard. I think we'll find it hard to walk without your rattling bones. Walk without your rattling bones. Walk without your rattling bones. Hey, Trevor here with another trivia question for you. Which figurehead appears on one side of the now defunct Canadian penny? And now back to the show. Please respond in the chat. Here we are in front of St. Clair Recording Company in Lexington, Kentucky. My name's Trevor, and I play guitar and sing in Enter the Haggis, and also, oddly enough, on this album playing a few other wacky instruments as well. We came down on Sunday, got here fairly late, and Monday we did pre-production, which is just running over the songs that we've written, working on final arrangements. Tuesday we continued to work on the pre-production and eventually did in the evening get into recording a couple of the tunes. We're about to head inside and record the bed tracks. And the bed tracks are the drums and the bass for a song called Blackout, which was inspired by an article about how poorly the Maple Leafs were doing.
Leafs lose 4-1 the final
last year when the newspaper came out. Toronto and home of the Maple Leafs, it's a big part of sports culture in the area. Even as a part of our Canadian identity. So it's sort of fun to delve into the mythology of the Toronto Maple Leafs. There was a player on the Maple Leafs team called Bill Barilko, who actually disappeared on a fishing trip. 10 years after the disappearance of Bill Barilko, the Leafs win the Stanley Cup. Someone rushes into the gardens and announces the news that Bill Barilko's body had been found. What buried bones do we have to bring home for another chance? It's the last we raised it up. Years come and go, and still nothing to show in these cold, cold hands. We blame Barilko's body on the decade drought. What buried bones do we have to bring home for another chance? It's a blackout, but we follow along. We keep chasing the puck, ever whispering someday, singing someday. Drink from the cup. Crept out from the gardens into the neon glow, a pauper's chair to an emperor's throne, still without a crown. Did we leave the bloodstains, the crack of ice to bone, as for glory drown. It's a blackout, but we follow along. We keep chasing the park, ever whispering someday, singing someday. When the final score is settled and the final roar decays, did we throw our sticks in the fire, or did we have our day? Or did we have our day? Or did we have our day? It's a blackout, but we follow along. We keep chasing the park, ever whispering. It's a blackout. It's a blackout. It's a blackout. Singing someday. Singing someday. Singing someday. We'll drink from the cup.
Hey, Trevor here again with a trivia question. In the song Blackout, we talk about a famous Toronto sports franchise. The question is, when was the last time we raised it up? Now back to the show.
That was Blackout, the hockey song of this record, and we're all eagerly awaiting the NHL season eventually coming back. I don't know what it's going to look like when it does, but that was a hockey song. That was Blackout. And we are now up to the final song on the record. This is a song that I wrote. The thing that I remember about writing this song is, as I think I mentioned before, I had just recently gotten a guitar amplifier and a pedal board with all kinds of pedals on it. And I'd spent God knows how many hours down in the basement of the house that I was renting trying to dial in guitar sounds. And I remember writing this song because I'd finally gotten this massive distorted Smashing Pumpkins guitar sound. And so I was just like rocking away on these chords by myself down in the basement forever, and just the huge chord shapes in drop D tuning. And the song kind of came together pretty fast. I was inspired by a bunch of different songs. There's a Death Cab for Cutie song called Transatlanticism, which is the title track from the album Transatlanticism, which has a similar kind of long, gradual build to a sort of payoff. I remember that we had a studio guest. One of the people who had paid to be on the record came in and played the piano part, just a sort of single note piano part on this song. And Craig, you may or may not have made your Glockenspiel debut on this song. Is that right?
I think I had the Glockenspiel playing in letters.
Okay.
Getting a ding, ding. unless Bruce played that. Did you play it or did I play it? I think I played it.
Yeah, you played it.
Yeah, since there was 2 notes, I think that's why I was allowed. But yes, I did. One of the things that I'll have to admit to is that it does exist a recording of me playing all the avoid notes. I don't know what kind of a scale you would call that, dun 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 dun, the kind of pentatonic kind of sounding thing. But there's actually a recording of, before I got it right, of me playing every wrong note and then hitting the frame of the glockenspiel.
Big as life.
And I went into the control room, and everybody was like pretty well on the floor laughing when we played the thing back. So after this, what I did, and this is very sad, but I got the right result, is I put electrical tape across every note that I was not supposed to play. Only the right ones for me to play.
Including the frame. Yeah.
Yeah. I put extra padding around the frame. But yes, Brian, you are correct.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, this song wound up being kind of, we only played this live a few times. I don't know why, but Trevor, you played piano live when we played this song live, which is pretty unusual. Maybe it's something we can resurrect at some time.
Sure.
But as it is the last song on the record, I guess we're almost done this particular listening party. So thank you guys for joining us here again. Thank you for contributing in the chat and contributing to the tip jar at enterthehaggis.com/tip jar. Hope things are working out well here on YouTube. It seems like a sort of a better home for us. I'll let you guys say your goodbyes individually so you all show up on screen.
Goodbye. Thanks for coming.
See you later, guys. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you. Peace out.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. You can hang out in the chat as long as you like because it does not close. So we will see you again in 2 weeks where we may or may not be speaking about an album by a completely different band.
Ooh.
This one's called Up in Lights. Have a great night. Cheers.
Thanks.
The first time always overwhelms, and our bodies frozen like we're statues of ourselves. Our eyes close, ready now, whatever we might see. Tonight we're all expecting it to be big as life. aside like pennies in the street. In the morning, the music stops. Whatever we achieve tonight, we need a reason to believe we're big as life. Fishermen off the grand banks of Newfoundland. Oh, the ocean's an angel with the face of a flounder. As she holds the devil by the hand. As she holds the devil by the hand. Good catch to you all, calls the captain Robert Rose. The dory boats are lowered where the fathoms fall below. But the red sun scowls and the wind, the wiser, whispering a warning o'er the lines. Whispering a warning o'er the lines. Those who dwell ashore know nothing of the lore and the glory and the mystery of the deep. Salt water in our veins and the captain at the reins. Our wandering souls the freest, our wandering souls the freest of the free. When the mothership's dead and cracked a signal to return, the clouds will build them bastions in the swirling up above. Poseidon the king and the wind is just dancing with the lightning lady fair. We're dancing with the lightning lady fair. And the black water boiled, the dory pitched and toiled. Can you hear the klaxon calling out your name? Are we anchored to a fate to die upon the waves? Far from all our family, far from all our family and friends. Tiny fingers pressed against the window pane. Find your father's star upon the sea. Keep of wind and bones of ice. They cast their cries into the night, lost, alone, adrift, alive. With the oars in the grave, the two men were given for gone away. Bitter news travels well like a schooner on the swells. The families learn the story of their fates. But on the ocean high, a rescue had come by and took them to the old world on the far Atlantic side. After 2 months gone, the blessed harbor of St. John's, rolling on the North Atlantic tide, rolling on the North Atlantic tide. Those who dwell ashore know nothing of the lore and the glory and the mystery of the deep. But when their heart is strong, you'll return where you belong. So they made it back to Newfoundland. Oh, they made it back to Newfoundland again. Tiny fingers pressed against the window pane. Find your father's star upon the sea. Keep your faith like deep beneath your pillowcase till the day when he returns again.
Thanks very much.